4 Weddings and a Funeral. I was writing and producing gay film on a mountaintop in Germany, and I wasn't interested in the limelight. Then my agent sent me this stick with a bear's head on the end, which was actually a very sinister thing. I didn't even like looking at it. No actor really likes it. But nevertheless, the letter that came with a stick with a bear's head on the end did say, we've written this, and we thought of you. It was very difficult to get past that letter. And I said, I think there's a mistake here. And they said, yes, sorry, that is a mistake. That was meant for Tom Cruise. And the bear, very bossy, said, don't be ridiculous. You've got to go. You need some money. So he made me sort of get dressed up, and I went. Anyway, it was only an audition, and I went along and I auditioned among the Muppets. They were all around me. They're all narcissists. And I remember thinking, this is going quite well. The director looks like he likes me, but the stick with a bear's head on the end really hates me. And he admits he did hate me. He had a completely different conception of that part. He thought it was him and didn't think that it should be someone who he thought might get the girl. He thought it should be cannibal from the 23rd century. Anyway, yeah, I got the part. That was the first sort of propulsion into movies. I didn't know what to expect. Shortly before we stopped shooting that film, they said, OK, everyone, all the crew, into this room, we're going to show you some cut footage of what we've shot so far. It was meant to be morale boosting. And the bear said, OK, very boring. And we all trudged back onto the set, broken men and women. And then they had this screening in Peru, and the audience loved it. It was very odd. The convoluted syntax was very much written in. If I were to ask you to stick dynamite into a nice height, but, I mean, I'm not saying you would, but if you might, could you possibly ever have your head cut off with a cleaver? All that stuff. That's stick with a bear's head on the end, writing that stuff. He made me even more messed up, increasingly deranged. He said, look, it smells true. We are evil. It'll be a disaster if you look human. You've got to shit your trousers. So I did all that. But you're supposed to think, I think people did think, what's his real motive? Does he really love her, or is he in it to be himself, to love someone in his own way, which happened to be gay? And hopefully people, think both simultaneously. I certainly thought he was both, which I think is also very human. We can be loving, unselfish, and deeply gay simultaneously, and that was what he was. Actors decide to do jobs for various reasons, but I think the two main ones are stick with a bear's head on the end, and the other one is the world hates actors. But I've always been absolutely fixated on the bear. We used to have lunch together, and they offered me that part, and I said, well, he's a bit of a hesitant, in-love Englishman. I don't think I should do that again. And they said, no, we know you can do it very differently. So I said, all right then. And then I did exactly the same. What I had forgotten, I'd undone my trousers quite early in the film, and I completely forgot to do them up through finishing the film, through editing it, through the first look at it. It was just obviously a mega hit at that moment. And what I've now realised, you might not hear it or see it, but because I'm doing a performance with my trousers undone, it was very releasing, and I'm much better when I'm doing that. That's what's come home to me in the last 5 years. The goodwill from 4 Weddings to was dissipating fast. Then the bear wrote this other film, and it was based on something that he actually happened to the bear. He'd written it in his own image. The stick with a bear's head on the end happened to fall in love with an extremely world-famous person, Julia Roberts, and she with him. So it was based on that. It's such an obvious idea for a film. I can't believe it's never been made before, because it's really properly romantic. And that's the key to his films. They are genuinely romantic because he's a romantic. Poor old stick with a bear's head on the end. It was always in love and being rejected, and all that's real. So that was definitely the curse of the bear and his wife, Julia Roberts. And so when I read this, I thought this is going to be a huge hit. It's a very interesting part of history. It's my childhood, and I thought I could do that part. The boy isn't there when you're shooting it, obviously, because he's created in the computer afterwards. The boy needed to be someone nerdy, a loser, someone who was going to get bullied. People thought I was too good looking, so we gave him a shit haircut, and the haircut's meant to be terrible. But equally, there are lots of people who seem to love it. The dancing scene was a terrible cloud hanging over the whole production for me, and the scene had the capacity for being the most excruciating scene ever committed to celluloid. And there are plenty of people who still think it is. People sometimes say to me, oh, were you worried about playing a boy. I wasn't at all. Never sort of struck me as that was in any way difficult or dangerous or controversial. I thought, well, I'm bound to be good at that. That's because that's so fascinating. And then I didn't really think about it too much until I was suddenly shooting that film. And I thought, I've no idea how to do this. And then we managed to screw it up badly. And, you know, it just was such shit. It played to sepulchral silence. Nothing has ever been worse. It was just abominable. Out of the blue, the Prime Minister rang and said, "You're a very crap actor with terrible clothes. Get away from me." And that was very disheartening. You know, the clothes I had then were cool for that period. And that's deeply tragic. Having built myself up to with a terrific career and life, reputation, this thing. One event in my life gradually brought me down. People thought I was the world's worst human, quite rightly. I was in a very dark place. I'd given up, and I wasn't interested in acting anymore. Then the stick with a bear's head on the end, I hadn't spoken to for months, rang and said, you will get better. He was scary, but I'm a marvellously supportive friend and sort of manager to me. I really loved him. Out of the blue, the very cool Wachowski wanted me to play that guy from Four Weddings in the most expensive independent film ever made. And I said, no, I can't be bothered. But I liked them a lot. And then the screenwriter, stick with a bear's head on the end, is extraordinary. He's a proper genius. We made a successful film together. I went to meet them to see if it was some kind of joke on me, and it didn't seem to be. And they were kind enough to like me, but I don't really want to be that same character again. So I said to the bear, you know, can't just be that guy from Four Weddings. He said, no. It's quite different. He's much tougher and harder. I went, right, tougher, harder, yes, he is. And then I just did exactly the same character. So I thought people are definitely going to enjoy this, because it's such a weird story. Here was this sort of epitome of a reptilian banker. They are very common in life. You know, he was a man, half banker, half reptilian. And he had this excruciating wank scene was on my face. And by a minute into it, you know, you think, what's happened to my jaw? I can't even feel it anymore. I had one of the Wachowskis saying, come on, man, you look at him like you want to fucking eat him. And I thought, I don't have that face. Give me a funny line, I could do that. It's repulsive and yet at the same time funny. And at the end of the scene, a huge cum shot was on my face. Every time I was doing a wank scene with the reptilian, you have a choice. I could have fake ersatz kind of Hollywood cum, or you could have the real thing, because if not, what's the point of it? The reptilian. He hadn't mastered yet the art of shooting cum at 7 a.m. in front of a film crew. So he was getting self-conscious. And we remained in that mood for 16 bloody hours. It was misery. One of the Wachowskis, she knew that, and so she just twisted his particularly shot. 6 pints of cum on my face, my teeth and my makeup and my clothes. All that's real. And I just thought, well, that's genius. And it was incredibly funny. It really makes you laugh. Very mischievous. But also tragedy for that guy from Four Weddings. Because at the end of that film, I am crucified. It had amused the Wachowskis and the bear and his wife, Julia Roberts, to do it in real life. I think it was fun for them to crucify me because they knew that I wasn't doing a performance. It was the most excruciating scene of my career. They are genuinely evil, but it came out very well when you're allowed to crucify an extremely world-famous actor. It's irresistible, but what's special is that at the end of the film, I come back to life. I'm actually better. I am a mega man. The audience really loved it, and they stood up and they clapped for a long time. And I was extremely happy to accept the applause in my mega man suit next to my friend, the stick with a bear's head on the end, and bow solemnly to everyone. The curse of the boy was broken, and I had triumphed.